Hello, friends. Let's talk about leadership theories. When we think about leadership, we often picture someone at a podium or a CEO commanding a boardroom, or maybe a passionate activist leading a protest. But leadership isn't a fixed identity, it's a practice, a process, and most importantly, a relationship between people. Let's walk through some of the most influential theories of leadership. Let's begin with a simple question. What makes someone a leader? Some say it's about charisma or natural talent. Others point to hard work, ethics, or the ability to inspire. The truth, leadership isn't one size fits all. It depends on context, on people, on time and place. Over the past century, scholars and practitioners have developed theories to help us understand leadership more deeply. Each theory offers different lens, and together they give us a fuller picture of what it means to lead with purpose. Let's begin with one of the earliest approaches, what is known as trait theory. This theory, advanced in the early 20th century by scholars like Ralph Stockdale and later Edwin Giselli, suggests that leaders are born with inherent traits, things like intelligence, confidence, charisma, and determination. Think of someone like Nelson Mandela. According to trait theory, his qualities made him a natural leader. But there is a problem. Trait theory doesn't explain why some people with those traits don't lead, or why some leaders emerge without them. It leaves little space for learning, change, or social context. Next came behavioral theories, particularly influential in the 1940s and 50s, thanks to research at Ohio State University and also University of Michigan. Um, Rather than focusing on who leaders are, behavior theories focus on what leaders do. Two key dimensions emerged. One focused on tasks, getting the job done, and the other on relationships, supporting and developing people. This opened the door to the idea that leadership isn't fixed, it can be learned. What was a radical shift at the time, and it continues to inform leadership training programs today, is that. Then came situational leadership. This was developed by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard famously in the 1960s. Their model suggests that no one leadership style is best. Instead, effective leaders adapt their style to match competence and commitment of their followers. They outlined four styles: directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating based on the situation at hand. It's a flexible, responsive model. A great leader, in this view, meets people where they are and helps them grow from there. Now, let's look at one of the most inspiring models, one of my favorite: transformational leadership. This concept was introduced by James McGregor Burns in 1978 and later expanded by Bernard Bass. Transformational leaders don't just guide, they inspire. They help people imagine new possibilities. They raise the bar emotionally and morally. They exhibit four main qualities: idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration. In short, they transform others to by building trust, encouraging innovation, and igniting purpose. Then there is servant leadership. a profoundly human approach developed by Robert Greenleaf in 1970. Greenleaf's core insight was simple but very powerful. The best leaders put others first, they serve. Servant leaders are listeners, stewards, empathizers. They empower rather than control. They lead from behind, not to stay out of the spotlight, but to shine it on others. This approach has had a deep influence in education, healthcare, and nonprofit leadership, where relational trust matters as much as results. And finally, we arrive at adaptive leadership, a theory developed by Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky. And these guys were at Harvard's Kennedy School. Heifetz and Linsky argue that today's leaders face challenges without easy answers, what they call adaptive challenges. These can't be solved with technical know how alone. They require shifts in values, habits, and ways of thinking. Adaptive leaders help groups face uncertainty, navigate conflict, and experiment with solutions without pretending to have all the answers. It's about helping people do hard work together with courage. And this is the key word. If you do not have courage, if you're not willing to take risks, then you are not practicing adaptive leadership. Now, let's bring all of these theories to life with a real world example. Meet Reshma Saujani, the founder of Girls Who Code, a nonprofit organization dedicated to closing the gender gap in technology. Since launching in 2012, the organization has reached hundreds of thousands of girls across the United States, offering coding programs, leadership training, and community support. Saujani's journey began not with a tech background, but with a political one. After a failed congressional run, she reflected on what truly mattered to her, and she noticed a troubling pattern. Very few young women were entering the tech space. That observation became her call to action. Reshma's leadership is a clear example of what I would call transformational leadership, as outlined by James McGregor Burns and expanded by Bernard Bass, of course. She didn't just build programs, she built a movement. She inspired a generation of young women to reimagine who belongs in computing. Her TED Talk, books, and national advocacy all amplify a vision of empowerment. At the same time, her leadership style is rooted in servant leadership, as described by Greenleaf. She frequently centers student voices, encourages peer mentoring, and creates space for girls to define success on their own terms. It's not about her, it's about them. And like any startup leader, Saujani has had to practice situational leadership too. In the early days, she rolled up her sleeves and coached new instructors and volunteers directly. As the organization grew, she had to learn to delegate, to build systems, and to support leaders who could take ownership in their communities, just as Hersey and Blanchard had suggested. Finally, Girls Who Code has not been immune to disruption. During COVID-19 pandemic, for example, they had to rapidly pivot to virtual learning, maintain engagement remotely, and reassess how to serve girls with limited access to Wi-Fi or tech support. This required adaptive leadership, as Ryan Heifetz would frame it. Saujani and her team didn't offer simple technical fixes. They mobilized their network to face uncertainty, learn quickly, and reimagine their delivery model. What makes her story so relevant for us is this: Reshma Saujani didn't stick to one leadership script. She adapted, she listened, she evolved, and in doing so, she showed that leadership is as much about emotional intelligence and ethical clarity as it is about vision. So, what did we learn from all of this? Leadership is not a position, it's a practice, a craft, a set of choices made every day. And while no single theory explains it all, together these perspectives give us tools for reflection, action, and transformation. So I'll end with this question: which theory of leadership feels most like your natural style? And which one challenges you to grow? Leadership begins with awareness and it expands with intention. Thanks for being here. Let's keep learning and let's keep leading with purpose.